Hello and welcome to another webinar hosted by Plan for Australia. I'm very excited today to have Matt Atkinson join me in the studio. Matt and I are going to be talking all things property finance. So if you are in the market or thinking of buying a property in Australia, we're going to get all the information from expert Matt. Matt, thank you for joining me. Do you want to say hi and tell everybody a little bit about you?
Perfect. Robin, thanks for having me. Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone, wherever you're dialing in from. It's great to be here. Look, Robin, just a bit about me for everyone that's listening in. So I'm a property finance specialist based in Melbourne, Australia, and really helping people get into the property market or transact in that specific arena. So I'm originally from South Africa, been here for just under a decade.
Wow.
But really, and prior to stepping into property finance, spent quite a bit of time in the finance industry for the better part of a decade, and this is now my sole focus.
Wow. So you were working previously in finance, but now you're running your own little venture?
Yes, I'm part of Condor Finance Partners. We're a brokerage based in the CBD.
Okay.
But yes, background is typically chartered accountant qualified. So coming through South Africa, spent some time with EY and Deloitte in the corporate finance arena, and banking with NAB, which is one of the big four banks in Australia.
Yes.
Before stepping out and focusing specifically in the property sector here, which is, I'm sure you're aware, very people see it as a good avenue around building wealth. So there's generally a lot of activity from people buying their first homes or investors gearing up and looking to do multiple transactions.
That's great. So you've got a really in-depth experience, and not only do you have the chartered accountant background in these big four companies, but having worked in a bank within Australia, that's really unique. So I think that's going to be of interest to a lot of our listeners today. What would you say, Matt, are some of the differences, the key differences in buying a property in Australia? And I'm sorry to jump straight in, but I could fire questions at you all day at the moment. So we've got a few to get through, and I just really wanted to start there. What do you find as being some of the key differences? Because I know when I've bought my first house in Australia, it's pretty daunting.
No, it is. Look, and so I think probably the first thing to highlight, whether you're coming to Australia from Europe or the UK, Americas, South Africa, largely the process is similar in some respects. And by that I mean is you'll source a property. That might be through a local agent, or go onto a platform and you'll search the websites, find something you like in a specific area, and then if you're in a fortunate position, potentially buy that for cash, or like most Australians here, you'll need to get some finance to help you with that property. So you'll work through that process. Obviously, there's various regulations for each country, but really the key differences in Australia is, one is around the pace at which the market moves. So people here see it as an avenue to build wealth, and what that means is there's generally quite a bit of property transacting. So when you're looking to get into the market, you want to be prepared in terms of if you're looking to buy, you want to have all your ducks in a row so you can get going and make sure you can look to purchase with confidence. The other part is around location. So, Australia is a big country, but typically a large part of the population lives around the fringes. So your eastern states, obviously Perth on the west coast, and obviously sprinkled up in the north and south. What this means is, so although there's a large land area, typically that's all condensed into your metro areas. So, for example, given our population size, and the land size, you'll still see your medium house value in Sydney, for example, about $1.4 million, and down here in Melbourne, you're looking at $1 million for an average family house.
Wow.
Probably the last point just to highlight just is around lenders. So typically, and I'll use South Africa as an example, you might have 10 to 15 lenders that specialize in mortgage lending. Australia, you would have well over 40. What that means is there's quite a bit of competition in terms of when you are looking to get a mortgage, when you're entering into the market. It also means that lenders are slightly different around their policies. So there's various lenders that may be better suited to you than others, depending on what your personal circumstances are.
That's incredible. That's a huge difference. And I think sometimes too much choice makes it more difficult. And I can see why services like a broker would then come into effect, because I wouldn't even know where to start. I kind of maybe start at the Google rankings, which probably isn't the place to find finance. But, I guess that's what makes a broker important for people and why they should speak to you. So give me a little bit information about, a brokering service and what it can provide to people. What does a mortgage broker do?
So essentially, a broker or property finance specialist really acts as an intermediary between the lenders and the borrower. So we've got access to multiple different lenders and all their products. And what we would look to do is work with the individual and work out and develop a personal lending strategy for them. And really what that entails is taking into account their personal financial circumstances, so incomes, assets, liabilities, expenses, and working through that and then looking for appropriate lending products that match their profile and what it is that they're trying to achieve from a financial objective perspective. So it's really trying to bring those all together and navigate some of that complexity in order to really help them achieve that result at the end of the day, which for a lot of people is that purchase of their first property, family home, or maybe stepping into the investment space.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to what I do. People can sort of say, I want a rental and I want 3 bedrooms. But when you start knuckling down to, the fixtures and fittings, the area, you need to take a holistic view of everything. And I think getting some expert advice on that, obviously I would say it's important, but obviously, for Matt, that's what you're doing as well. You're looking at everything. And I think for new arrivals in Australia, that's so important because we don't know. We're a bit like a deer in the headlights. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to look at all those different finance options, interest rates, take into consideration our age, our lending status. So if you don't mind, can we just touch a little bit about that? So, if we were a new arrival in Australia with perhaps not permanent residency, but a visa, are there options? Are there penalties? Do they get higher interest rates? Do you have any insight for our watchers or listeners?
Sure. So, typically your banks would lend to the Australian citizens and permanent residents that are based here. It's not to say someone that's newly arrived would be completely excluded from that conversation. But really, and this is, I hope where someone like myself could add value is it's really understanding the different lenders and what their policies allow them to in terms of what looks like an appropriate borrower. So that would be, further conversations. And for that specific person, it's just unpacking a bit more around what visas they're on, understanding what their personal financial position. Once a broker has got an understanding of that, we can also then put that together in terms of our understanding of lender policy and see what potentially appropriate financial solution, is available to that person. So it's really, I would encourage you, if you have arrived and you're looking to get into the market, is to open up that conversation to really get a good understanding of what your options are, because it can be a bit complex, but it's not to say there isn't a solution. You just really need to work through that. Okay.
So, just talk to somebody. Don't just assume that, what you're reading on social media or in the news means that it's relevant for everyone. Everybody's circumstances are different. Their visas might be different, and there's different, there'll be different options available. And as you say, if they're talking to you, what those options might be and can short track their process. And I'm all for short tracking because it reduces stress.
That's it. Look, and it's a big life decision, and anyone's life is around buying property, especially with the prices that we spoke about. So you want to make sure that you can put your best foot forward and borrow with confidence.
And I guess if you had to go into the bank as a new arrival, perhaps on a temporary type visa or long stay temporary visa, and you went into the bank and said, can I get a loan? They'd probably perhaps say, no, not today. And then you might think that's the end of the road. So what would be a difference between is there a difference between, going to a broker and going to the bank direct? I guess it's that whole holistic view of everything.
That's correct. So look, if you're going into a bank, they would have a variety of different products that they can work with you on. What you typically may find is some of those don't best suit in terms of what you're after or what your personal circumstances reflect. Where a broker, we've got access to multiple different lenders. And what that means is, one specific lender may not be appropriate for you for various reasons. We got the option, and by understanding different lenders and their policies and products, look to tailor something to your specific circumstances. So, look, I wouldn't be disheartened if you've spoken to a lender and that outcome isn't, what you were expecting or positive. What I would encourage you to do is do a bit of research, have a conversation with some property finance specialists, and work through that with them to see what results you may get.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Matt, when I arrived, I had lived in a few countries, got here from France, quickly determined where I wanted to live. We sold our house in the UK, and I was all excited because now I was going to buy in Australia. And the first house I went into, the estate agent said to me, well, we selling by auction. And I was just like, what? I never heard of buying a house by an auction. How does this work? And luckily I had a really good estate agent that day, because he wasn't, obviously he wanted to make the sale, but he was really helpful in his advice to me and what options I could look at. And that's what I find quite interesting with Australia is there's so many different ways of buying a house. Can you run us through some of those?
Sure. So, well, let's start with the auction. So, really, an auction, like as we know, it is a public bidding process. Highest price generally wins the auction. So, yeah, much in the same manner, the property will be advertised for sale specifically to go to auction, and there'll be a price guide that is set, and the sellers would have a reservation price that they would like to see crossed prior to them essentially the property being on the market. And really, that'll be hosted on a specific day, and people are there and they're bidding as you would. And really, that final price, typically, you'd go ahead and win that auction.
It's quite scary.
And it is. And look, it's a process because it's something that, as you would appreciate, can be quite stressful. You're bidding quite a bit of money. You want to make
stakes are high.
Well, that's it. You want to be sure in terms of what you can borrow, to make sure that you don't, because an auction typically you don't have any subject to finance. So if you're looking to buy, you'd be asked to put down a deposit and sign those contracts very soon after that auction finishing. So it is one avenue, and typically previously we've seen that being a popular avenue in terms of how people sell their houses.
Yeah, for the seller, it's a much quicker process, isn't it? And that's why it's so popular, I think, because it is a much quicker process of selling and having too many inspections and things. Okay.
And then, look, some of the other options that some of your other viewers may be more familiar with is the option of going through like a private sale where you would advertise your house, put up your price point, and then entertain direct offers potentially through a real estate agent, and agree on a price and move forward from there.
Okay. So you mentioned something just now about pre-approval. So should people have their finance in place before they're going to any sale, or would that only be for an auction?
Typically an auction, it is good to understand in general, because what that enables you, it might just reset your expectations in terms of the price point that you're looking to enter the market. So it's not an activity that doesn't have value. It will enable you to understand what that financial position looks like for you and your family. So maybe just around, and why it's important for an auction is, what it allows you to do is you can go and have your personal finances assessed, understand what you can actually borrow, And banks will, not all, but some banks do typically do a full assessment, and they will issue you with a pre-approval subject to certain conditions being fulfilled. It just allows you, and not that it's a guarantee, because there might, as I said, there's some of those conditions to be met, but it will allow you to go to something like an auction and be able to bid with confidence.
Yes,
as
yes,
opposed
knowing
to
what your buying power is. Yeah.
Well, that's it. And look, we've had, clients on both sides where people have gone and they've got that pre-approval in place. It just means as soon as they're successful, we can get the contract or the evaluation and help work through those conditions that are set, versus where sometimes people don't have that. They need to buy a property, and there might be one or two items that pop up that we need to work with them to address, which can be stressful, potentially when you put a big deposit down and, the clock's ticking in terms of towards settlement, to have that finance in place from a lender.
Yeah. And I know there's you can buy a house without pre-approval and all that, but it just elongates. And as you say, it's better to know what your buying power is and be able to buy with confidence.
Yes.
What about the processing times? How long typically does it take? Because I have a lot of people that are moving that are perhaps in a rental, wanting to buy after a year or two of being in Australia. What is the buying timeline?
So look, that's a question which it can be, depending on the individual, probably changes quite a bit. But I might start at the point where people are ready to buy. Potentially they've got a deposit or some money saved up. So typically there's probably a couple of key parts of the process, and I'll talk through maybe just around a pre-approval as an example. So that process may take 4 to 6 weeks. Potentially it could be quicker. But really, what that is, it's dependent on the conversation you may have, whether that's with a broker or a bank, in just providing all your personal information and working through that to be in a position where a lender's comfortable issuing you with one. We've done pre-approvals in much shorter time frames, almost a week. We needed to have things being expedited because there's certain deadlines to be met. But typically, just to get that information turned around, you're probably looking about 4 weeks. And then that's really where the fun starts, because you've now got that debt that's available to you with those conditions. It's about then trying to work through and purchase that property. So, that might be something you're able to do quite quickly, whether that be through going to an auction. You might have a private sale or engage someone like a buyer's advocate to help you source a property. So look, that might be for you. You might be able to turn that around in a month and then work through to settlement. So, anything from, let's say, 2 months, and some people have taken, 18 to 24 months to find that perfect house. So that's just guided by your personal circumstances.
So get your finance in place, because that can take potentially a month. Then you're actually buying the property. So that could, that's how long's a piece of string. And then there's contracts and exchanges and all sorts of things that go on. So once you've bought a property, you can have a settlement date. Is that correct? So you could potentially, get your finance in place, take a month or two to find the house. The whole process could take about 6 months, but you have some flexibility, don't you, on that settlement date?
Well, that's it. And typically, that would be agreed between the buyer and the seller. So you would move from there.
What about, trying to get my wording on this one, but foreign income streams, can they be included as part of their income to help them have a more buying power and be able to get, do banks and lenders here take foreign, their foreign money, their foreign income into consideration? Sorry, I'm losing my words. But, can that be attributed to their income to give them more buying power here? Or do the banks get nervous about that?
Simple answer is yes and no. So
okay.
Speak
to somebody helpful. First and find out.
Look, really, that's also driven around the different lenders will associate that with different risks. So around the foreign income, it's what's really important is, one, understanding what it is for. So how often it's paid, what does it relate to? and then, is it within the lender policy? So that's why I say there are lenders which may accept a higher amount of that or might exclude it depending on what it is. Really, what you want to do is have that conversation. So whether that's with the bank directly or speak with a property finance specialist, is just and provide them with a really good understanding of what that is, and how it's earned, etc. And then what they'll be able to do is pair that with policy and understand if that can be a part of in terms of calculating your borrowing power towards going for a pre-approval or your house purchase.
And again, I guess, people like yourselves know which institutions would have it in their policy not to accept it. So you wouldn't be wasting a client's time by doing that. And that kind of brings me on to my last couple of questions for you, Matt. And one is, how far in advance should people start talking to you? But the second one is, what have they got to lose? Are there any fees involved with talking to you, getting some advice, working with you? Two questions rolled into one there, I'm afraid. But yes, is there any cost of working with a broker? And how early on should they be talking to you?
Perfect. So I'll start with that first question around how brokers are paid. So typically, brokers are paid directly from the lender at settlements of your loan. So in a normal property purchase, as the borrower wouldn't be paying the broker directly. Also important to note, from a transparency perspective, I'll use us as an example. As we're working through the process, we also disclose directly to the borrower how our fees are calculated and how we are remunerated. So although they aren't paying us directly, we do show that as part of the transparency so they can understand that as part of the transaction. It's not so. Some brokers may charge additional fees for other services that they offer as part of that. Probably one thing to note, as a borrower, it's worth asking that question up front. And just from a broker's perspective, it's important that prior to proceeding, they let you know that they're charging a fee and provide a clear understanding in terms of what that fee is for. But typically it's a normal residential home loan purchase, the broker would be remunerated by the lender.
Okay, so there's not really any upfront costs or something that need to be involved. And, shortlisting lenders and knowing where to go is going to short track their whole process, which is, one of the few advantages of using a broker, especially when you're new to the market or new to the country.
That's true. And it's someone that can also help you essentially streamline a lot of information and really sort of help you tailor that to your personal circumstances. Second question around, when should you speak to a broker? Look, we deal with people throughout the whole property transaction cycle. So that might be someone that's thinking about buying their first home. You may have already bought and you're looking to do some renovation and you're wanting to free up some equity to help you pay for that. You might be selling and looking to upgrade your house, or it may be a case of you're closing out, or you've paid down a fair bit of your debt. You've got some additional income and you're looking to invest and buy other properties for retirement. So, from our perspective, any part in the property transaction cycle, it's a good time to reach out to someone, speak to them about, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and see how the broker can work with you in terms of developing a personal lending strategy and really help you borrow with confidence in terms of, meeting your financial objectives.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate that you've been so distinct and honest and open, and I've thrown a lot of questions at you, so I really appreciate how polite you've been with all your answers to me, and helping other people that are arriving in Australia and might be getting despondent or thinking that they can't buy a property. It sounds like it's definitely worth reaching out and speaking to somebody who knows their stuff. And have those conversations early on, and there might be opportunities out there. And I guess it is that case of having a look at those opportunities and deciding if they're right for you.
Correct.
Yeah. Lovely. So I'm just going to add if anybody wants to get in touch with Matt, these are his contact details. Please do feel free to contact him. Matt, did you have any other top tips or anything else you wanted to share with everybody this evening? I think it is just to talk to people, find out the right information for your circumstances. But
that's
Matt.
it. It's exactly to your point. Look, we're all here to help, and we appreciate that. And as I said, coming into the market as someone, we coming in, it is a foreign country. It's good to have those people around you that can help you make this decision, especially when it is for most people, they might only be doing it once or twice in their lives. We've also worked with other property professionals. So, if it's an area where we may not be able to help you out, we can definitely recommend other people that you can reach out to. So that might be someone like a conveyancer. You might speak to a financial planner, financial advisor to understand how that fits in with your retirement plan. Or even, speak with a buyer's advocate, as you spoke about. That auction process can be quite daunting. So that's why I say the various professionals in this area help make that process a bit easier for you. So have a conversation, and hopefully that will alleviate some of the load and add some value.
Absolutely, Matt. And the whole idea for Plan for Australia, in my head, the whole idea is to stop people getting scammed, to stop getting bad information. There's a lot of it going out there. So rather come and speak to people and find a trusted ally who then has a network that they can introduce you to.
No, that's it. Well, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. I really appreciate your time, Matt. Thank you so much. I will speak to you again soon. And thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.